Okay, you can start.
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for joining this event. Today we are going to talk about Airflow. This will be kind of a masterclass or webinar. It's introductory, the basic or entry level by its nature. So it's basically for those who are just thinking of getting familiar with Airflow or just did the first steps. This webinar will help you to understand its basic concepts, its basic terms, architecture, components, and make first steps by creating first simple DAG. And my expectations and my hope that this webinar will help you to get kind of like basic foundation that will help you to proceed with deeper investigation and research of Airflow. Because when you acquire a new technology, from my perspective, from my experience, the most complex thing is just to start learning. Then you made a little step toward it. It's it will be easier to continue learning. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
You see repo, right? Data projects.
Yeah, you can drop the link in the chat as well, both of them.
Okay. So first of all, we will start by talking a bit of theory, and then we switch to practice. Let me share these links so that you can follow. So I just sent the link to the article about the theory, and here is the link to the repo. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the Airflow basics. Dmitry, please feel free to step in if you have something to correct or append or elaborate. It will be really good to hear your experience here. So Apache Airflow is a popular orchestration tools. It allows to manage complex data pipelines. Pipeline is a series of steps or tasks that needs to be done to execute some process. For example, ETL, extract, transform, and load is an example of ETL. And Apache, its primary function to kind of manage these steps. It's popular for a few reasons. It's open source, that means it's free for use. It's written on Python, so Python is very popular and multi-purpose language. So everybody who knows it can use Apache or Airflow, and that brings another advantage that Airflow can be very flexible. That means even if Airflow does not have some necessary tools, necessary operators to execute some tasks, you can implement them on their own. You can just go to source code, look at the Airflow source code, and implement some classes. Okay, some basic terms that are like most common when we talk about Airflow. The DAG, it means directed acyclic graph. Basically, it's a like grouping or collection of tasks. It's like hierarchy term. To make it easy, just think of it as a collection of tasks that needs to be executed. Task, it's just a concrete specific step, a part of the data pipeline. For example, if our pipeline includes steps like extract, transform, load, so the tasks here are extract, transform, and load. So three tasks in this pipeline. Operator, it's kind of like task nature or what this task is doing. To like better understand it, you can use this analogy. It's type of tool. For example, if you need to build something at factory or assembly, the tools might be hammer or saw. So Python, in order to execute like specific operation, if you need to use Python for some operation, for example, you need to extract data from database and you need to use Python for this purpose, you should use Python operator. If you need to do some using Bash, you should use Bash operator. Scheduler, it's the service that determines which task are inside DAG and what the dependency between the tasks are and what the schedule for them are and so on. Executor, it's kind of environment. It defines the environment where the tasks will be executed. It's a common question on job interviews for companies that use Airflow as a tool. They often ask like what types of executors you know, and you can answer that like there are executors like local, single, if I'm not mistaken, Celery, Kubernetes. Local, it means that all tasks defined in the DAG inside your like Airflow, and they all will be executed on your local machine on a single service. But if you need to like distributed environment, when you need for complex or production workflows, most likely you will have like more advanced type of executors such as Celery executors or Kubernetes that allow to have like a set, a bunch of different worker machines or processes that will be used to execute tasks. I think I feel like maybe I explained it not clear way. Dmitry, maybe you have a like more simple explanation of what executor is.
No, I think overall it's just very challenging to see those things what they do without not using the Airflow. Yeah, I think executor probably is basically it's the thing that execute your task, and if you have like dbt executor, Databricks executor, Docker executor, so it's the thing that will trigger your ETL job. And yeah, I think there are some of them I even have no idea what they mean. I mean, the basic functionality of Airflow is very simple. You need to know what services it consists from, like web server, database, and why they're there. And then you need to know how to create a single DAG or maybe multiple DAGs to connect the data or transform the data. And yeah, for example, I never use XCom. I think it's some kind of, I don't know, some complicated things that always troubles everyone. But for example, I use connections and variables a lot, and yeah, like operator and executor is fine, but it's definitely better to go into project versus just in theory
I agree
check
completely.
them.
So let's not stop here for a long time. But anyway, just a little bit on this concept as well. XCom, it's why I want to like talk a bit about it, because XCom, it's usually it's asked as a question on job interviews as well. They might ask you like how like you can share information between different tasks in your Airflow DAGs, and your answers should be using XCom. So XCom is just a mechanism or feature of Airflow that allows to like interchange or share data between tasks. For example, if your DAG has extract, transform, and load tasks, and after you extracted the data, for example, you stored some data on some location on disk, and you have passed to the folder with the extracted files, and you can use XCom to pass that path from extraction task to transform task, so that transform task knows where to take the data. It's just like basic example. Connections, it's just like feature of Airflow where you can set up integration with other systems, be it like database management system like SQL Server, Postgres, or Azure, ADLS, or AWS, and so on. Variables, it's for security instead of hard coding variables, secrets, tokens in your code. You use Airflow UI to put these variables too. And plugins allows you to like extend existing functionality of Airflow. Like I mentioned before, if you feel the lag or you can't find some operator out of the package, you can implement it on your own. In terms of architecture, you can take a look at this picture, and it's just a few major services here. You need to know about them. It's web server, scheduler, executor, workers, metadata database, and DAG directory is not actually the service, but it's important in terms of overall Airflow functioning. So metadata database, it's just a database where Airflow keeps all the information, all DAGs or Python files you created, all tasks inside it, all information about how the tasks executed. All of these stores are stored inside the metadata database. Another component is web server. It's basically UI. So when you open your Airflow UI, you can see all the stuff, tasks, DAGs, and so on. And web server, to show all this information, it takes the data from this database. Scheduler, it's how to say, it's the heart of the Airflow system. It defines, it constantly monitors your DAGs that you created and put into the DAG directory. And it scans these DAGs, looking for specific task, identifies dependency between those tasks, and when it's time to put them into a queue and trigger the execution. And the workers here is working processes or machines. There the actual job is done. Okay. Okay, you can read about this later. Dmitry, if you have anything to add here from the theory perspective, you can add. Otherwise, we will switch to practical stage.
I think so the most important thing, the primary role of Airflow, it's just scheduler for your transformations. And for data warehouse, there are two primary tasks. One is data ingestion, and the second is data transformation. So Airflow can do both. It can ingest the data. For example, if you have API or database, you can write the Python script that will query database or will query API and do some kind of transformations with pandas and ingest in data warehouse. And then in another job, you can just use the Python or SQL or trigger the DBT to run the transformations, or you can trigger the Spark to run the transformation. So, but the main reason is the scheduler.
Thank you. And just
I'd like to ask.
Okay.
I'd like to add, Max, you showed the diagram, and yeah, and this diagram, I think, explains the types of executors. A local executor running task on the same machine as the scheduler, and a remote executor send this task to the workers. So if we run our Airflow on our laptop, local machine, there will be only local executors. Because we run on the same machine scheduler and all tasks. I think workers we have, if we run Airflow in some MWA service or something like this, some AWS or serverless server.
Okay. Thank you. You can actually read about the executor just to have a better understanding of it. I didn't use like that a lot. My understanding is that when you play with it, like locally, when you learn things, examine how like Airflow works, you're just using local executor. But in production environment, typically like executors of types Celery or Docker or Kubernetes are used to have a bunch of workers. Just a little bit on Airflow use cases. So reasons why you might choose Airflow, it's because of Python, and with Python it comes great flexibility. You can implement new stuff, and also why Airflow is popular, it's because it's open source. The code is available, so you can just go to GitHub and see the repo and all its code. And Airflow has a large and active community. That means that people are contributing and creating new stuff, and like most likely you will find everything you need to do for your task in terms of operators and so on. Also, as Dmitry mentioned, the main feature of it is great scheduling capabilities, and it offers different tools and options to schedule your jobs, including Cron expressions and so on. It also has like nice and intuitive web interface. And another feature is backfilling. So when you need to like run your created pipeline for some like data in the past, you can also like use the backfill commands in Airflow to do that. And kind of disadvantages, or when you might not use or should avoid Airflow, is it's written using Python. It kinds of challenge for your team. So team should be aware of Python programming, should have Python programming skills to be able to use that. And also, it's not for data streaming; it's for batch processes only. Okay, let's switch to the practice. If any questions, feel free to like interrupt me, step in, and ask your questions. So I will be following from scratch. what we will do in this practical project, we will download the project from Surfalytics repo. We will run Airflow using Docker Compose, and we will take a look at a few examples of DAG files I created, and we will try to execute them. Okay, so the first step, what I'm going to do. I mentioned the prerequisites in Discord previously, but in order to follow along, please ensure that you have your Docker desktop running, and you also should have VS Code installed. Okay, the first step, I'm going to clone my repo. I open the terminal. I'm going to create a special folder for it, Airflow project. Okay, I'm going to clone this repo. And it's the entire repo, so it's not just about the project. So we need to go to the project folder. It's located in the projects. Yeah, we just need to go to the projects. This data. Okay, we are in the right folder. And nice comment Dmitry shared on one of the previous webinars. In order to launch VS Code right away from this directory, so that you don't need to open VS Code and then navigate to the necessary folder, you are in terminal in the correct folder. So in order to execute, launch the VS Code that will look into this directory you are currently in, you just need to type these commands, code and then space and dot. It means open VS Code using this directory. Pretty useful. So it just opened VS Code and I'm in the project folder. Otherwise, if you had already opened your VS Code, you need to click File, Open Folder, and just navigate to the project folder. If you fall behind or have questions, please feel free to ask. So we cloned the repo. We are inside the project folder. We ensure that Docker desktop is running. The next step will be to run our Docker Compose. Docker Compose, it's like file that describes, defines the settings for different Airflow services that we will create and run as Docker containers. If you don't know what all of this means inside Docker Compose file, I recommend copy and paste it to ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT about any question you have. what this specific thing means, how it works in general. It depends on like which familiar, how like much you are familiar with Docker Compose and which specific questions you have. Okay. In order to run our Airflow, we need to execute the Docker Compose up-d command. -d here.
Do you share the screen, because we see your Teams window?
Oh my gosh. Okay, let me reshare. Can you see VS Code now?
Yes, we can.
Oh, so you didn't see the terminal, right? When I
no, we didn't.
Oh, okay. Let me get back. So what I did, the first step was to download, clone the GitHub repo. I'm going to create a different folder to keep my project in. It will be Airflow Proj. So I will clone the GitHub repo.
What kind of shell do you use for Windows?
Currently, I opened GitHub Bash.
Oh, GitHub Bash, it's basically their own shell, right?
Actually, I don't know, Dmitry.
Interesting. You can check, but yeah, maybe later. We can need to ask ChatGPT how to check the type of Bash. Or can you click plus sign, or not plus, but a little arrow near the plus sign? It will show you what. Yeah, that's the Bash. Yeah, maybe it Git, because before we used Ubuntu, but yeah, maybe Git is better. But the idea not to using the PowerShell on Windows machine.
Yeah, that's why I switched to Git Bash. I also have Ubuntu WSL, but I had some problems with it, so Git Bash works well for me. So why I think it's important to show these steps as well, because it's common steps at work when you start doing different projects. It's common steps that's when you like join a new company or join a new project. It's common steps that you download the GitHub repo and open it in IDE. And it's a very useful feature. You can open your VS Code in this directory you are currently in using this command. So you just type code space dot and you can open, and VS Code will be opened in this specific directory. So pretty useful. Terminal. In VS Code we also have terminals, and I'm going to use Git Bash as well. So the next step is to run Docker Compose, and for that we use Docker Compose up-d command. -d means we run this command in background. Otherwise, if you if you execute it in this way, it will still work, but your terminal will be busy because like you won't be able to use this terminal because you will also see like the output from running Docker services. So it's better to use -d flag to run it in the background. It will take some time, but not that much to run this.
Then I started, I got the message that Airflow UUID variable is not set, but it's more like warning.
It's nothing critical. It's not required for our like project run. It's just a warning. Actually, I just use the official Docker Compose image, and like for the sake of our like testing or investigation or Airflow, like a lot of this stuff is not necessary, so we can like reduce a lot of things. But
did you copy this YAML file as a template? Did you do any changes to this, or it was just as is?
Yeah, well, it's almost as is, but I did some changes. It was a lot of like comments. I removed all that stuff with some extra info, and also I switch this setting, Airflow core load examples to false, because if you keep it as true, when you launch Airflow UI, you will see a lot of different sample DAGs. So for this project, we will switch it off. But if you like decide to learn or examine Airflow later, you can switch it to true. I will show how it works later. You will have a chance to look into other sample DAGs to kind of know how they work. Okay, it looks like our command was executed successfully, but like the next step is to check if it's for sure that all services run successfully. For this purpose, we should use another command, docker compose ps-a. And what we should look into here, we should see that for all services except Airflow init, we should see the up status. If it's not the case for you and for some services except for Airflow init, you see like restarted or exited or something that is different from up, it means that something wrong happened. Airflow init, it's okay for it to have exited status because it's just one initial task that executes only once and then it exits. Basically, what is happening inside it, it creates like database tables inside Airflow, inside like metastore database, users, and so on. So it just needed to like execute once. So for me, it looks like everything started successfully. Please ensure that on your end you see like the same picture.
Yeah, for me, all steps working.
Okay, the next step then we will try to open Airflow UI. I will send it in the channel. The username and password here are just Airflow. Passwords for Airflow UI. Okay, please try to log in. So what you see inside, on the main screen, you see all the DAGs, and this information, these DAGs are taken from what you have in this DAG directory. So we will start working with the first DAG. And it's very simple. It's just to illustrate like the basic functionality of the DAG. Here we defined 3 simple functions. It's like dummy functions. They are not doing something real. They just print some like dummy messages. The first function is just printing this string, extracting data, and also the return also string row underscore data. The next function, transform, like what you see here, it's how like the before mentioned XCom or sharing mechanism works. So when you put this like return, put something into return for one of the functions, it means that inside XCom, like some item or variable is created, and you can access this value from other tasks. And this is what we are doing. So in order for the transform function to receive the output from the previous function, we are using XCom mechanism. And we are saying that please give us like the output for the task with this task task ID. And when we are doing just simple operation, it's string manipulation. We just make this string to be in uppercase. We also put login message and we return this transform data, which is basically this value just in uppercase. And it's also a dummy function that's but it's just doing one thing. It gets the output from the transform function and prints it in the login message. Its functions, it's just it's like utils methods. It's not like the operations or tasks or real task inside DAG. Here is the DAG definition. The number of these stuff like lines can be different. So you see here just 4 lines, but
so in the DAG is synonymous to basically the job. So one file, one job, and one job can contain like multiple tasks.
Yeah, it's like grouping for your task.
Yeah, but I think I still, because I never use XCom, I try to understand why you need here them, or maybe you completely don't need them here. Like what this job is doing. Like, do you run Python script?
Yeah, we will run it, and you will get it.
No, but I mean, if this job is only running the Python script, why you need XCom?
Maybe they are not really needed here, but I just wanted to like share this knowledge how it works. For this specific pipeline, they are not needed, but for your projects and tasks, it might be the case that you need them, and you will know how to use them.
Okay.
So nothing will break if I remove this. I just wanted to illustrate that there is such concept and we can use it this way. So inside the DAG, we put a few important things. DAG ID is just a string. It should be unique value. Description is optional. When you put description, you will be able to see it inside your DAG. When you click it, it will be somewhere here. start date when you want to start your DAG, and schedule interval. And Airflow comes with different options. You can use some stuff like this, like daily or weekly, or you can define the Cron expression to be like more flexible. And this is like, okay.
I see that in your VS Code, there are 3 Python files, but in your interface, there are 5. Why is that such difference?
Yeah, we will cover this a bit later. So for now, we should be looking into just this sample DAG. In order to use this function, we need to wrap it as a Python operator. And here what we are doing, we are using Python operator. Inside each task, we should provide task ID. And since it's Python operator, there is a like special syntax in order for Python operator to execute our utility function. We should use this keyword Python callable, and inside it we provide the name of our function. So it's kind of redundant stuff, but this is how it works. So we wrap up each of these functions as a Python operator. And here I also using bash operator. It's just to show like the difference of operators, and like in your project you can use a great variety of operators, not only Python operator, bash operator. It might be email operator and a lot of other different stuff. What happens here is we are using simple bash command to just print the Airflow core executor environment variable on the screen. Okay, and here, after we defined our tasks, we should provide like the execution chain, how we arrange like the order of how these tasks should be executed in which order. And for this, like Airflow uses this bitwise operator. It's like 2 triangles pointing to the right. So let's execute it. In order to execute the DAG, if we didn't put any schedule, we can run it manually by clicking on this triangle button. So we click on it, and here you can see it's better to like monitor the execution of your DAG. I personally use this graph tab. So you can see all your tasks in this graph representation, and you can also see how they are executed and how the status of every task is changing. Now we can see that all our tasks were executed successfully, and you can see here there is a legend like on top of it, so that you can use this color legend to understand like the status of your tasks. For every DAG run, you will get a new column here, and inside each column you can see like execution result of each task. Here is for extract task, transform task, load, and monitoring. In order to like see the logs of individual task, you just need to click on the task and you will see some extra stuff here. For example, since we are printing something inside, like in the extract function, we are extracting data. In order to be able to see this log message, what I did, I clicked the extract task, and then I clicked logs, and we can see here. So this is exactly what we're put here as a log message. And about XCom, how it works. We returned the value, and Airflow created XCom item under the hood. So if we click this XCom, we will see that we have here return value key, and the value here is raw data. So if you put something different here, it will be different here. If we switch to transform task and check the logs, we will see a different log records. So it transforming data, and yeah. And if we check the return value, we are returning like the transformed value. It should be raw data uppercase. So we should, in the XCom, we should see this value, but in uppercase. So let's check that. Yeah. In the load task, we also see some printing statements. And inside our bash command, no, we are not printing anything. What else should I explain here? Any questions on the interface here?
Why do you have more than one execution?
Sorry? Once again?
You said that one execution is one column in the graph on the left, but you have 12. I can't see how many in the graph. So one execution is one column, but you said, but now I see that more than one column, but you press the play button only once. So how many times did this execute?
It's because like I executed them before the webinar. So in your case, it should be one or two, depending on how many times you click the button.
All
but
right.
It's because of my previous execution.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yes, and they are here because I use Docker volume, and it's like saved the info for my previous runs.
Can I add something? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
If we will also execute this DAG, we will get several executions because the start date was set to 1st of January, and it will run every day from January 1st. And if you want just one execution, you should change the start date value in the DAG.
Yeah. Did you see that? In your case, it executed multiple times, starting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's another concept of. Yeah, thank you for mentioning this. It's important. Airflow has, how it's called, Catchup value that is true by default, and what it means that if you have start date that's in the past versus today, like when you execute this DAG, it will execute multiple times starting from this start date you put into your DAG. If you don't want this and you want Airflow to execute your DAG starting from today, you should explicitly set this variable to false. In this case, it should work only for like today. Okay, any other questions here? Okay, let's switch on to the. Any question?
Time, like the start time, is it actually like it doesn't have the time of the day? Does it even matter? Does the day, month, and year? What's important?
It depends on your project needs. So it should be reasonable. It should not be just some like random.
Well, it says daily, but what time exactly it will execute? Is it going to be like
daily?
01,
It's
0001?
It's 12 a.m. So by default, it's midnight UTC. And if you need it's like a different timing instead of, if it doesn't work for you and you want to like change the time to be like specific, for example, 1 a.m. Like hour and like 5 minutes, like this. It's better to use the cron notation. So you put something like cron expression. I don't know, don't remember the exact syntax, but you put something like this, and then all this stuff, and you just specify minutes, hour, and so on. And instead of running like daily at 12 a.m. every night, it will be running according to like more precise schedule.
Max, I passed in the chat cron notation example, like run every day at 35 minutes, or every hour, sorry, every hour at 35 minutes.
Okay.
So yeah, as Max mentioned, using cron notation, you can set whatever you want time.
Okay. Thank you.
But I think it should be schedule, not
Yeah,
schedule interval.
that's correct, because I remember that schedule interval, it's kind of deprecated. It was used in the previous versions, like below
yeah,
2
and Catchup without underscore, I think in one
like
one word.
Okay.
Catchup.
Yeah, that's correct. So I'd like to switch to the second DAG, but second DAG, it's basically the same thing. So it does the same stuff, but it just uses like different notation or different formatting. So for me, then I first started working with Airflow. I really didn't like the idea of having utility functions and like the necessity of wrapping them in Python operator. It's kind of duplication, and like for this project, for this like demo projects, it works. But when you have like a real life projects and you have some parameters, it becomes really complex to like switch back and forth between these, and you can produce like many years. At my current work, like my teammates are using this notation. So instead of having a utility function and then wrapping up it as a Python operator, you can just use it in a more compact way. So basically, it's just the utility function as is, but with the task decorator on top of that. To be able to use task decorator, you should import them, and that's basically it. So if we execute this DAG, it will work the same way. We can check it. Yeah, all success. You can also see here return values, and I put different values. Instead of raw data, I put dummy data here. And as a result of transform, we return here transform data. We see same dummy data, but in uppercase. And just a few things here. Also, instead of defining the bash operator, you can rope. You can use just one function. It's like it looks like basic or regular Python function, but you can put on top the decorator task.bash, and like your bash expression or bash command should come within the return statement. And it provides great flexibility, because if you need to parameterize something, you can just put here f, put something in brackets, right? So it's much more convenient than just using the regular bash operator. What else to say here? Yeah, it might look, I don't know, not scary, but maybe inconvenient. But once you try this, once it worked for you one time, you may realize how like flexible it is. For me, it was very inconvenient when I first saw it. All these decorators, it was even scary for me. But once I tried them, I never switched back to using this, unless there is a real case that I need to use some operators. And actually, like you may use a mix of both. So for one task, you may use Python function with task decorator, and you can also use some other operator here and mix them all together. And notice here, it's interesting stuff that I did not use here this like bitwise operator to define dependency, but still in my deck task like graph, I see the correct sequence. It's because like Airflow understand like the chain of like execution, but we can like specify the order explicitly. For example, we can do something like this: transformed monitor task. Okay, let me comment this. It may, okay, I showed two examples how to do this. Extract.
One of the biggest challenge with Airflow that despite the fact you always will create the DAG, but every company will have very different DAG code. So basically the line 37 will be more or less the same, but every task implementations will be so different. And because there are many versions of Airflow, like older and newer, they always something release. And that's why I basically work in multiple companies with Airflow. They never share the same approach, how they create the DAG.
Yeah. You see here that I defined like another sequence. So that was initial definition. You can like define the order this way. Another case, if like functions have many parameters inside it, you can use something like this. You can use extract task equals extract transform task equals transform. Now it may seem like not necessary or weird, but in real life projects you have usually you have a lot of parameters inside each task, so then using this makes sense. You create like a new variable, transform task, that points to the function. You provide all the required parameters here. Load task.
Okay. The line 37, will it fail because you didn't pass the argument to the function, or it will still execute?
This line?
The line 37, will it fail because you didn't pass the parameter, or it will still run the one on line 37? Or I guess, for example, the load function, I think, expects the transform data stream. If you don't pass anything, will it still run? It will fail.
Let's check it. Track task, transform task. Yeah, it will fail for sure. Yeah. Okay, it's just to show that like another way to define the task order sequence. In this specific like project case, we should use this notation in order to avoid errors. Okay, any questions here? And in the third version of DAG, I wanted to show another way of creating DAGs, and also it's an answer to the question you asked before, why here in my DAG folder there are just 3 DAGs or 3 Python files, but when we look into the DAGs, we see here like 5 DAGs, right? And the answer is in this file. So that's another way of how we can create multiple DAGs using just one script. So we kind of it's kind of reuse of this notation or methods of defining DAGs. But the main difference here, we kind of like define function to create DAGs. When we like call this function, it will create a DAG. And it works this way. So we create the function. Basically what we did here, we just wrap up all what we have here for a single DAG inside the function, and I called it makeETL DAG. And now, in the end of file, I can use this function. I can call it to create a DAGs. And just imagine the case, because it was unclear thing for me when I started working with Airflow. For example, we have this DAG, right? And it does some ETL job for some table. For example, accounts, right? We have accounts table somewhere in source database, right? And we are doing a bunch of steps to extract, transform, load data. For example, we are working on migration project. But imagine like the real project, it's not limited to just one table. We have a lot of tables. It might be 50, hundreds, or even more. And my question was like, what we should do in this case? Should we create like a DAG for one table, and how it will look like? Just imagine, for example, we have in the source database 100 tables. Should we create 100 DAGs here? But it does not like sound reasonable. Basically, we need to follow same logic, but it should apply to different tables. And what I found in this method, as it exactly allows to solve this problem. We define one logic and we like kind of parameterize the DAG and tasks. And when we can define in the config or just put into the variable required table names. Let's add some new here. For example, orders, transactions. So we have 5 tables in our source database, and we define like the general transformation logic for our DAG, that all of these tables in the source should follow. So as a result of this script, we should get 5 DAGs, each of them related to this specific table. So let's check this. Oh, it takes some time to synchronize. So you can just see that it works. We have DAG for account, for contact, for order, and using the parameters. So, for example, in order to distinguish between these programmatically defined DAGs and tasks, I use like parameterized setting the IDs. For DAG ID, I use like simple-ETL DAG prefix followed by table name, and inside each task I use like task ID overrides to make the task have also specific and easily identifiable ID, so it can be easily seen if we go inside each DAG. So it looks like this: extract accounts, transform accounts, load accounts. Pretty useful. If you go back to the DAG and switch to the context table and look at the task graph, we see like the same sequence of steps with same logic. So if we take a look at the code, it's still same code. So we are applying the same logic, but like task ID are like point to the context table. So pretty useful. We can execute this. I didn't know about this. I just learned about this at my current work. Yeah, and as a return value, I'm returning the table name. The table name is taken from ETL DAG itself. So if we go to, for example, DAG order, and look into the logs, execution logs, we will see the order value. Yeah. Any questions here?
Do you plan to, for example, is this possible right now to create new DAG that will query any kind of API?
Yeah, I actually have this already. I covered in the article, so we can reuse it.
Yeah, maybe we can just, you can show how to, you will create new DAG. So, and it will, as soon as you add the file, so Airflow basically syncing your folders, or in production, it's usually syncing the GitHub repo. Like I think it's schedule can running like out of sync. But here if you do changes in the Python file, the Airflow will reload it, right? You don't need to restart it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you now you can try. Let's try to add new DAG and do some simple thing. Maybe using your Juno and just query API and maybe show the output, or maybe save the CSV file locally.
Okay. I will put this link into the chat.
And also in Airflow, can you open UI? So in admin console, can you expand admin? Yes, here the couple things that I often use is connections and the variables. So variables is the same as environment variables. So if you want to have some kind of password and store the password inside Airflow, like I don't password for the database, you can use the variables. It's not the most secure way of doing this, but this is basically how you can save all your variables and passwords. If you want to make it secure, you can integrate with a cloud secret service, for example, secret manager on AWS or Key Vault on Azure and so on, or a Google secret service. So, and it can pull all the secrets there. You can just basically point there. Once I had this project, it was very hard to integrate because documentations for Airflow is very hard to read. And then in connections, so for example, why you need connections? If you connecting database or S3 or anything, and you're using the same connections over in multiple places, the same with variables. If you're using in multiple places, here you can define it. Just create one connection. Can you click plus? For example, you want to write into Snowflake. You can choose connection type, like for example, Snowflake. Yeah, and then you basically can reuse this connection and like your destination, for example, Snowflake or like source, Postgres or SFTP, whatever you want. So there's the place where you can define connections. Yeah, those two things is probably very popular to use.
Yeah. Most probably you will be using these functions a lot. Okay, let's try to create some simple DAG. We won't be like reproducing the whole ETL pipeline. I created one for Azuna, but let's try to extract raw data from Azuna API and save it locally into disk. I will send the link to Zoom chat, Teams chat. Yeah, and I see that Dmitry mentioned about sensors. Sensor in Airflow, it's like special type of operators that basically used to wait for some event to happen. For example, it might be the case that before like starting transformation task, you need to first ensure that extraction was made and a specific file was created locally on the disk. And for that purpose, you can create like sensor operator that will be constantly checking if the file appeared on the disk at the specified location. And once the file appeared, the sensor operator will return true value, and you can proceed with like doing transformations and other downstream tasks. Okay, before switching to the query raw API, I also wanted to share a few useful commands you will most likely work with like for Airflow running inside Docker Compose. If you need to like switch off containers, you probably know these commands as well. You should use Docker Compose down. What it does, it stops all the Docker containers. And if you go back to Airflow UI and try to refresh the page, you will see it doesn't work because we stop everything. So in order to run it again, we need to use the Docker Compose app/d command again. And I will show you just a few more commands that I think will be useful for your projects. Okay. After containers started, we need to check their status. We are doing it with docker compose ps-a command. So what I wanted to share with you, like in these projects, we just like take a look at, like every task was executed successfully, but it's not always the case in real life projects. For sure, you will have something like failed. And in order to check or troubleshoot things, you need to check the logs, and you may look into logs using this command.
Why did you drop or stop the Airflow? Why did you stop Airflow?
It's just to show these commands.
Okay.
Compose down. So, for example, there is something wrong with your web server. Okay, let me show how to check a log files, for example, for web server. In order to check logs, you can use docker compose logs and then the name of service. And it will print some bunch. I believe it's some, I don't know if it's the whole logs or just a part of it. So you can use these commands. If you need just a portion of the files, you can use -n and specify the number of records from log files you want to get. So if you don't need the whole file, you can want to see the last 3 lines, you can use this command. Another useful command, for example, you want to monitor logs in real time. In this case, you can use -f flag, and it will show you like the log in real time. If I go to Airflow and will start doing anything, you will see the log are changing, and you see like the logs immediately. So it's one case. It may be also useful if you don't know which exact service you need to like view the logs for. You can check logs for all services at once. And it's just one different thing here. So instead of specifying the exact service, you can just not specify it. And for example, this command will be showing you all the logs for all the services in real time. So what's happening for every service? It will be there. I put these commands to repository. So let me show it to you. So in case you needed them later, you can find them. So inside the project folder, I created README file, and I put all the commands here. One important thing here. Sometimes, for example, if you check the logs and you like got an understanding where the issue is, it's pretty usual case when you need to log in into a specific container, and this is how you can do that as well. So let me show it to you. For example, you want to log into worker, right? You can use this command docker compose exec-it, use the name of service, and use bash. It will get you into inside the Docker container. And you see, so you are inside Airflow worker container. And you can check like whatever you need. So that's basically it's about commands. Do you have any questions? Or maybe you know some other useful commands that will help to like troubleshoot, debug some issues with running Airflow? Okay, if no, let's try to create a DAG to extract the data from Azure API. I will be referring to the article with the project. Okay, let me share. Project. Okay. It will be interesting to run this DAG. Zoom ETL.
I think another useful thing, because currently your DAG is including the all transformations, right? But what you can do, for example, you can inside the, okay, let's copy it here first. And because it has everything, it has the Airflow DAG thing, but also it have the Python transformations. So how we usually do this, we can just quickly create it without actually doing anything. So in DAGs, you can create new folder like Azure ETL, right? And then you can inside create like Azure ETL DAG file. No, you don't need move. You don't need move. It will more like prototype. You can create Azure ETL DAG, the Python file.
Azure ETL py.
Azure ETL DAG py. Yeah.
Like this, right?
Yes. And then you can create a folder src, like source, in Azure ETL. Yeah, you can and inside folder, you can, for example, create the file like main.py or like doesn't really matter. No, inside source folder.
Yeah, I created file inside.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Okay, what should be inside it?
Like main.py or like anything. It doesn't really matter.
Main.py. What will be inside that main.py?
So inside main.py will be actual Python program. And inside the Azure ETL DAG will be just the Python command that will start main.py.
So you mean all the logic we put here, but in the DAG we will just query the function.
Yeah, it's basically the idea that you can, as a traditional Python, right? It's the good thing to avoid like complexity, and especially if ETL DAG is only about what is executing and what's the schedule, and maybe some Airflow specific things. So that's why we don't want to put in DAG all kind of transformations. That's why for Airflow it's totally fine. It will understand that there is the dependency on the file. So you basically in your Azure ETL DAG you can import the main.py file, right? So you can say from source main, and you can import all the functions you need.
Yeah.
and maybe later you can try to complete this, but yeah, the idea that in the DAG and inside your Azure Native open, yeah, for example here, which function call the start the DAG, like where is you starting the DAG?
I did not use it here, but I understand what you mean. I'm starting right away with get Azure raw data.
But can you scroll down? Can you scroll down here?
Here is the
in the Python file.
What
Yes.
do you need to?
So basically, you have your right. So you, for example, you have your Python operator. So you, for example, your task move process file task should basically executing function from main.py, right? So right now you're executing function from just above, but the idea that you will executing the functions from in another file. And here you will only control. And I think another thing that you can do, where do you store all the variables?
Inside variables.
In Airflow variables?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. That's what I want to do. Yeah, and it means, and also here you save all the data in Docker with Airflow. So the good solution is maybe storing it like in S3 or like Azure Blob, right? So you have like integration with like in connection, you define connection to. So basically, I think the homework for this would be to split this DAG into like components and then save result into like external bucket using the connections. So I think this will be fair homework for everyone.
Yeah, I'm already doing this at my current work, and we are using the approach you shared because we have Python projects built as a Python package, and so we don't keep in every doc all the logic, all the functions, or we are just importing these, right, from when they are here, and so we are using this approach for sure.
And we also, one company we did another approach, because here the downside that Airflow doing compute, so running all your Python files, and imagine you will start process like very heavy data files, and your Airflow can die because of this, like not enough memory. That's why one approach we had, so we basically had another repo with Docker containers for each task. It's basically your main py should be wrapped in the Docker container, and your main py will live outside of Airflow. So what Airflow will doing, it will executing the Docker executor, and basically it will spin up the container for you. And the container will have the main py. So in this case, if your job is dies, whatever, it's just the container will die, and that's it. But the Airflow will work. And in this case, Airflow is actually working as a orchestration tool, and it just taking all containers remotely that manage in other repos and with all the logics.
Yeah, thank you for sharing this because it's really important.
This is another thing what you can try. So I think basically the step number one, if you can transform this one to just splitting and writing to AWS or Azure. The step second, you can try to just having Docker outside inside Docker container. You can even like so create the Docker container with your Python code, right? Basically, if your entry point for the Docker container will be like execute your Python and do all the logic, and you can host this Docker container, Docker image in Docker Hub for free, and then your Airflow basically need to pull the image and start the container in your Docker like environment. Does it make sense?
Not actually.
So yeah, this is just the first approach is clear, right? You just
First
splitting
approach is clear. Let's break down and elaborate a bit on the second, because I will make a note and I will share it for everyone.
Yeah. Let's okay. This is just the first approach. Let's start like from the new line, like the second approach. Okay, so first you create maybe new repo, for example.
Second approach, create a new repo.
Yes, inside repo you will have Docker container with your Python logic. This is clear, right?
Docker container with
your Python code that doing like pulling data from API and saving into S3.
Okay, like ingestion transformation logic, right?
Yeah. It's the same if you will run it on your notebook, but instead of running notebook, the idea, then you start the Docker container. It basically will executing your Python code. This is also clear, right?
Yeah.
Then you need to save your Docker image into registry. For example, Docker Hub. Or it could be like AWS or Azure registry. But I mean, this is your image, and inside image you have logic to pulling the data and transform and saving the data. So it means if you start your container, it will do this kind of transformations for you. The next step inside your DAG, you need to use a Docker executor. Basically to pull the image and start the container. And then you do it, then you're pulling the image and starting the container. It means your logic start executing, but it's executing into individual container, not on your Airflow instance. So you're not sharing resources with Airflow. It's like independent container. And it's the same like then you're running DBT, right, in external container. Did you work with DBT? Like, did you ever work with Airflow, something like running externally? Or maybe that you recently asked about Databricks. Like you basically trigger Databricks job and Databricks compute handle it. There is no any load on Airflow except just waiting the status. And it's basically the same with container. And in this case, you can literally abstract any kind of logics into individual container. This is more work. Like imagine like every project will require you to create new container, but on the other hand, your Airflow just doing orchestration. It's not doing this complex thing, and just everyone suffer. So I think the hardest part here, find the way how to pull the image and start the, I think with ChatGPT it will be easier, but yeah, how you can pull and start the container in your Docker Compose. Basically, right, Docker Compose create you some kind of like network where you already have several containers to Airflow. Basically, you need to like dynamically create new container in the same network where Airflow is hosting. And this is very similar approach how everything works on Kubernetes. Like if your Airflow working on Kubernetes, right, in containers, you can use Kubernetes operator to pull the image and spin up the pod. It's the same as a container. Pod with your logic, running the logic and shut down the pod. And this is a kind of like, yeah, I mean, the key here, you're not sharing compute of Airflow to doing your data work. And I think this would be a very nice thing. And maybe you can share for everyone trying to dive into this. Yeah, but maybe now you can trying to run your Arjuna ETL. Like
yeah, that's really interesting. And it's really interesting also because it's like production case, right? So
yeah, it's exactly. It's open source. It's how you can use open source, like to run all your like orchestration stuff.
Dmitry, and question here. So it's kind of best practice. It's kind of a recommendation. We always should avoid to do heavy lifting using Airflow. We use Airflow just for orchestration, for running jobs, right?
So what the question?
I mean, it should be always the case that we don't do like any transformation, extraction using Airflow compute, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, then the question is, I see Maksim created this link to the folders, the shared data folder, unprocessed folder. So in case if the maybe question to Dimo or maybe Max, what do you think if we use Airflow as an orchestrator?
Oh,
then
we shouldn't do this in any way. Like we shouldn't use the local Airflow storage anyway. It just no one ever uses it in production. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, for example, if we deploy to cloud, we should, in case AWS is S3, so we should point all of them there.
Yes, and even maybe if we want running it locally with the Docker, we should let our Docker compose to connect, external volume, and then because this is internal volume of Airflow, but we need to connect, in Docker we can connect external volume, and it means if data will be saved, I don't know, is it external volume, Max, or it's not external volume?
It's not external.
Yeah, even if you're doing like this, you should connect in your Docker compose, your external volume. Because, for example, your DAG folder is external volume, right? So if it means if you in VS Code you change your DAG, it automatically updating the logic.
Let's check in Docker Compose because I'm not sure I'm getting this. I have these volumes, but it's just like folder mapping, and I have like Docker permanent volume defined here.
Where is your DAGs folder?
My DAGs folder are here.
So because Airflow project dir. And what is Airflow project dir?
You can ignore this. It's like environment variable, but it's defaulted to DAGs. So in terms of our
I
project,
think
it's
okay, so it's basically mapping your DAGs folder in VS Code to opt Airflow DAG. So I think it's actually already like external volume, and probably if you're gonna run it, you should find the files in VS Code. But somewhere in the Docker, where is the Docker file?
I don't have Docker file.
Okay, so
because
the Docker
I'm using
compose,
the like images, ready images.
yeah, I assume that inside this Docker image, they already maybe have these settings that it's using DAGs, config, logs, plugins as a mapping external folders. Then it's starting. So
Maybe
it's
I created this. I am not sure if it was.
no, I think it's the inside the image. So on the line 3, because you're pulling official image, and I think this official image mapping thing. So then you build the Docker, you can specify. I'm not sure in details, but the only way to test it, then you will run Arjuna. But even if you change the DAG, you can see that it is available it's automatically updates inside Airflow. It means it's external.
I see. And Dmitry, one question here. Basically, when I do this kind of mapping, right? I understand this part. It's the DAX folder inside my project, right? And this folder it's for like which services? It's for Airflow Web Server Worker or like where this folder will be created.
Oh, it's really, but when you did in the bash, right? Then you're connecting container. What container did you connect?
For like test purpose, I connected to Worker, if I'm not mistaken.
And can you do Docker PS, like to see active containers running in terminal? So we have Worker, scheduler. Yeah, because this is probably just the theory behind Airflow. What server is hosted them? And I don't know myself. Is it Worker or web server or scheduler? So, but it's basically default for Airflow, whatever it will be available.
I think I know the answer because it's called like Anchor, right? So it's kind of thing that we can use for to make reusable parts inside Docker Compose. That means that whenever we see Airflow common in services below, it kinds of inherits these settings.
Mm-hmm.
And answering the question, we can easily try that. For example, I'm just searching by Airflow common, and I see that Airflow web server inherits this. The next service scheduler. Let's try to go to web server, for example, right? I just want to check this specific folder. Docker Compose. Airflow web server, and actually I don't need to go inside. I can execute the commands here, right? Ducks ls. No such file directory. Okay. Interesting. Let's just move inside. Opt Airflow DAGs. Oh, there is actually, yeah, it's available here. So let's check what we saw here. For example, scheduler.
Mm-hmm.
Scheduler. Yeah, it's also here. One more attempt. Worker. Worker. Yeah, it's also here. So how it works. Here is we define this block, and it's labeled as a Airflow command. It's kind of anchor. And in order to not replicate and put all this stuff for every service, like here web server, we are just using this notation. We are saying here, instead of like duplicating stuff, just go to this anchor. We can even use like control and click, and it will refer us back. So it's kind of inheriting. We are reusing all this configuration. So we have this structure in every service that inheriting from this anchor. So that's the answer. And
makes sense. And then it calls a command, and then it launches the appropriate service on each in each container. Like I think one says command web server, the other one says command scheduler. Makes sense because they just launch them in different containers, but definitely it's possible to launch them in the same container anyway, or on the same computer. Yeah, makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And Dmitry, I have one question regarding what you said. Like it's kind of best practice to use some external volumes. For example, some cloud storage. If I'm downloading something from say SQL Server, so I created connection in Airflow using like connection. And in order to save the output, like the fetch data from SQL Server to external volume, how it's happening?
So you have your Python code there. You, for example, read the external database, for example, SQL Alchemy JDBC connector. You read the data, and you have the data in your data frame. Like I think it's pandas, and then pandas you have the right capability. So you basically save your output in like CSV or JSON into target storage. So it could be cloud storage, or it could be external storage, or you even can directly connect another database and just insert. But I think in case of cloud data warehouse, you anyway, you need to store it in some kind like S3, and then run the copy command to ingest the data into Snowflake.
So I can avoid saving temporarily on local disk, Airflow disk, and I can save.
No, if you want to push the data, I don't know, can SQL Alchemy write into Snowflake, and it anyway will save the data, because to write in Snowflake, it save data to the cloud storage and then copy into Snowflake, but it might be happening under hood. So it kind will save the data locally and then save the file, push the file, but you don't see it. It will be happening under hood. You need to check, can SQL Alchemy write directly to Snowflake? And in logs, you might see that it actually will save the files and then push the file. So because you specify the chunks, like how many records per file, and then it saves the file, push the files, and it's doing this over and over. So it means if you don't need history in storage, you just specify the target as a Snowflake, and I expect that under hood it will saving locally and pushing to Snowflake.
Okay, thank you. So for simplicity, let's keep just one function. To save time, we will do just like ingest data from API. And I'm going to remove all our things from here.
What about the DAGs? Like the storage, the volume where you sort of save the data? I think it's a bit more straightforward. But what about the DAG itself that you deploy in Kubernetes? Do you need to map the DAG to some external storage, like S3?
What do you mean map DAG to S3?
Well, the location of DAG. So for example, you say, if right now we in our VS Code drop the update the DAG file, then but what if we deploy this in the cloud? Can we save that all the DAGs are in the Kubernetes or container services?
No, DAG saving in the Git repo. So then you're running your Airflow in production. It should automatically, there is a configuration should be where that the DAGs living in the repo. And I think Airflow scheduler sync your main branch every like 30 seconds. So it means if you merge something, it will automatically resync your merge.
All right. So you don't need to do a release pipeline then?
No, you don't need. So yeah, you probably can. You can probably have but it doesn't make sense, after every merge, because the thing of Airflow, because it has the scheduling and it can running pipelines randomly, it's could be painful to restart it, right? If you run your pipeline, you may trigger to restart. You don't need it. That's why usually just automatically syncing with your repo main branch. Maybe you can set up in the way that you will create release in your branch, right? Some kind of pipeline, and only then you create release it will syncing. Maybe you can, instead of just, maybe this configurable. But yeah, the idea that it's looking to your repo. And then if you want to have development instance of Airflow, you can have a development branch and then it's basically another instance of Airflow always looking to development branch.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, would be actually interesting to see how this is working in dev and cloud environment. Thank you.
It means you need to run Airflow, and I think another point here, deploying Airflow is hard. Like building DAGs is hard. Like it takes time to understand how it works, but also deploying open source Airflow in productions, it's also very hard. That's why I think my advice, if you have the task to deploy Airflow, better to use any managed service. For example, AWS has the managed Airflow, right? And you don't need to handle how you like Kubernetes or container service to deploy it yourself and update. So you can just go with managed service, or you reach the commercial astronomer Airflow, because yeah, it's to running on your own. It's quite complicated, and then do updates and so on. That's why. Yes, any like data engineering jobs, it's you work with the tool, but another part of the job, deploy the tool, and with open source, it's usually complicated.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, I think time is over. Like, yeah, I don't want to more than 2 hours, but Max, you can probably just trying to run your Juno API pipeline with API and just push to the repo.
Yeah, it's an interesting case. I definitely wanted to try.
Okay. See you, everyone. And yeah, we will have the record. I will upload to YouTube.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dean.
Thank you. Bye-bye.